In this episode, I talk with Samantha. She's a functional diagnostics practitioner where she works with her clients from a holistic perspective of trying to help them, with their diet, with their gut health, all these different aspects of health that tie into being more successful in their business and in life, avoiding burnout, avoiding brain fog. So we talk about a few tips and tricks that she recommends in this episode, specifically around diet and exercise and sleep, the things that entrepreneurs typically struggle with. So it's a great episode if you're looking to find a way to really improve your health overall, improve your productivity, and avoid burnout, avoid brain fog.
The startup people, it's just time. The only thing that is the biggest barrier is time. So I try to make it as easy as I can, and they'll do everything. And once I tell them they get it, they do it, they're gone, then they have my next point and they're like, boom, here's what I've been doing.
Hey everyone, we are here with Samantha. Samantha is a functional diagnostics practitioner, certified personal trainer, and holistic lifestyle coach. Thank you for being here with me.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So first off, can you walk us through functional diagnostics? What does that mean? What does that entail?
So I am a functional diagnostic, so it's nutrition technically.
Okay.
And basically what I do is it's like detective work. So I go and I try to find the root cause of whatever someone's symptoms are, or what might be like hindering them from reaching and optimize their health goals, or like optimizing their health the level that they want it to be at.
Yeah.
So I do that by running like functional lab testing, and not just, it's sort of like a test, don't guess. So I don't play that guess game to figure things out, and it becomes a little bit more individualized.
Right. Gotcha. And then with that, I mean, what are like the most common reasons, or what are just some example reasons of why people would be coming to you? Like, what are you treating?
So I work with people on a pretty wide spectrum, all the way from like autoimmune conditions are a big one, or a lot of people who are just feeling like really sick and like chronically tired and fatigued. They're gaining weight, they have GI issues. And it's sort of like each year or each couple months, something else. Like all of a sudden they'll get eczema, also, and they'll get migraines. So all these little like health problems come up, but they've gone to doctors or they've gone to their internist in the lab. They're always like, your labs are fine. And they tell them everything's fine, send them on their way, and then maybe give them like an antidepressant or birth control or whatever. And that doesn't really solve the problem.
Yeah.
So,
gotcha. And then you mentioned briefly, so you've had kind of two focuses, right? So you've worked with kind of busy moms and people that are, and moms that are kind of just struggling to keep up with everything. And then you've also focused on entrepreneurs. Is that right?
Yep.
Cool. And then how has that been different? Like what issues are you experiencing now versus, you did when you were working more with moms?
So entrepreneurs and like the startup and the business people are very type A. So they're going to do everything I tell them to do.
Yeah.
Not a lot of emotion involved. There's a lot more emotion involved with the people who have been struggling for years, and they're tired, and they like sometimes just the intake forms will be too stressful for them. The startup people, it's just time. The only thing that is the biggest barrier is time. So I try to make it as easy as I can, and they'll do everything. And once I tell them they get it, they do it, they're gone, then they have my next point and they're like, boom, here's what I've been doing. There's no like, it's very like they're on it. It's like training a woman for their wedding. I always say they're the best clients in the world to have, because they will, if I tell them to like go hula hoop in the backyard for 10 minutes every day and then go eat 8 carrots, they'll do it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, entrepreneurs, and they, I feel like it's sort of trending to be the biohacking, the Dave Asprey, all of the biohacking your health. And these are all these startup guys starting these big companies, but they're really focused on their health at the same time. So I think it is sort of like trending in a way.
Yeah.
Or it's starting to become like a more normal thing that you have to do self-care to be successful.
Right. Gotcha. I love it. Cool. That's fun. And so you mentioned you focus on more of, I'd say, like a holistic approach. So and you've already briefly mentioned a couple reasons, but where do you find like traditional providers or like clinicians, or like if I go to the hospital, like where, and they just put me on some kind of pill, like where is that approach falling short? Where do you kind of fill the gap?
So I think a lot of times they don't have the time or it's outside their toolbox to just really understand that there might be a bigger problem, a bigger, like a more of a root, like a root cause of what's going on with it. I think you come in with a symptom, they're going to band-aid it with a medication.
Yep.
That fixes it in most people's mind, and they trust the doctor because they're the
Right.
doctor. And it's not like that all doctors are bad. I do not feel that way at all. I think there's some great ones out there for sure. But it's not always one thing that's causing the problem. So you could have a thyroid condition that could be caused because of a inflammation in the gut, or you could be really estrogen dominant, male or female, due to your diet, or you're being exposed to estrogenic, things in your lifestyle, or it could be a underlying gut infection. I think a lot of people who suffer from like anxiety and brain sort of disorders or symptoms like depression, anxiety, let's see what else, sleep issues is like mold toxicity or mercury. So I just don't think that investigative work is done like on the initial consult or meeting.
Yeah.
Find out what really is going on in their body as a whole since they were born. Because
Right.
you've been exposed to mold as a child or been on a ton of antibiotics as a child, and that could be part of what is causing some problems now.
Wow, interesting. And I mean, just an example from my own life, like I had somebody I knew had heart murmurs or some had something going on with their heart, and like they could feel something going wrong every day, but then they went to a few doctors and like, oh, all your tests are normal, like you're fine. But then like, okay, this is like hurting, like it keeps getting worse. And so finally it was like the fourth doctor she had gone to. Like you're saying, like she spent the time to do a little bit more investigative work, and then like, oh well, we haven't tried this test, let's do this one. And then they found that she was getting like zero iron and like her body levels like just had no iron at all. And so, yeah, really interesting. I like the investigative aspect of that because I totally know what you're saying, where some doctors, their time is money and they'll just, prescribe something to, to fix you, right? And they don't really, I don't feel like often have the incentive to spend the time to work with you to have that investigative work done.
Yeah, for sure. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I've been fired by a lot of doctors. I come in and I've done the research and they're like,
Yeah.
they just want a band-aid, band-aid.
Yeah.
And I actually put a post up today on Instagram that said that it takes typically 4.5 to 5 years for an autoimmune condition to be diagnosed. And
Wow.
they've already gone to at least, I think, 6 or 7 doctors
Wow.
before they get to that point.
Wow.
So that's
That's
exhausting
crazy.
for sure. I mean, I know I went through, and that's probably like what I did. I went to so many doctors and so many people to try to figure it out what was
Yeah.
going on me, and everything was fine.
Right.
It,
Wow,
I
that's
mean, it
interesting.
really turned out to be I mean, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and but I had several parasites. My gut was just a hot mess. So
Wow. And yeah, I mean like you're saying, like a lot of people don't have the time or money or motivation to go through 5 or 6 years of trying to figure it out.
yeah, yeah, it's
That's
a lot of
insane.
work. So
Yeah.
I think it's getting from when I started, it's starting to become more of a like, I think people are more interested in doing a more alternative approach to
Yeah.
things, especially like a little bit after COVID.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I've noticed that.
Hmm.
And then it's easier to eat clean. I mean, just eating cleaner. So I run a food sensitivity test on a lot of my clients. And I remember when I used to run it, it was so hard for me to follow because, like, I mean, I could do it, but there weren't these like alternative,
Mm.
Swedish fish with no candy or corn or soy
Yeah.
in it. There was no chocolate that was dairy free, soy free, sugar free.
Right.
Like none of that shit existed. So
Yeah.
miserable existence. Now it's really not that hard.
Yeah.
You can have the
That's
things you
awesome.
enjoy. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. And so the next thing I wanted to get into is like I mean you're focusing on entrepreneurs and that's what I like to focus on as well. So we can talk more about, actually running a business and what issues come up there. And so what advice do you have to or I guess first off, what issues do you see with people when it comes to running a business? Like what issues come up in their life that prevent them from kind of reaching their full potential?
There's absolutely no balance.
Mm,
So I think that the work is definitely like 80% effort towards work or more, and then there's no like self-care, so they're not taking any downtime. Their sleep is definitely off. Either they're not sleeping enough, or they're not allowing themselves to sleep enough, or when they do, they cannot sleep. So there's no off switch. So they're never in like a parasympathetic state. They're always in like sympathetic, so they're always on. I think.
And then actually, could you explain that real quick? The sympathetic, parasympathetic?
Yeah, so parasympathetic is when your body is sort of in a calm, like state. You're not in fight or flight. Sympathetic is like I would say sympathetic, think of an S, stress. So that's when you're like super stressed out all the time. So that you're in like fight or flight. And that's when your cortisol is going. So your cortisol output is like on fire at all times. And your body doesn't know the difference between good and bad stress. And eventually what happens is your body actually starts to run out of that cortisol, which will then in turn start to tank your other hormones. It'll tank your cortisone, which is your body's natural anti-inflammatory. So that's when you get a lot of hormone imbalances. Gotcha. But I definitely see that. I see not enough time with your family or your friends or your loved ones. I think that is super important. You know, you just sort of like lose sight of, you know, of like it being in tune with like what your body needs as a whole. Your diet suffers because you just have to eat whatever, because you're always on the go, you're always on a phone call, you're always working, you don't have time to meal prep, you don't da 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 da. There's always something that they don't have time for, you know.
Right.
And some people just have that work ethic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, is that something that typically people are, like you said, you work with a lot of type A, you know, personality type people. Are you able to overcome that, or do you experience a lot of resistance to actually eventually finding that balance?
So I think if I really, as I work with them, they start to realize like that they have to have the balance. And what I'm really good at, just because I've been there, I am there.
Yeah.
Being able to schedule it. So if you just schedule things in your daily routine or your weekly routine or monthly, whatever, you'll be able to like achieve that little bit of self-care, but it'll happen.
Yeah.
So if every, you know, Sunday I do an infrared sauna, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those are my workout days. I put it in my calendar. I do, you know, whatever modality, yoga the other day. If those are in my calendar, it will happen. They're usually pretty good if it's blocked out. So you have to block out the time and make it happen and stick with it. But it, you know, obviously there's going to be roadblocks that I come up with everyone, and everybody's so different. That's why I just kind of treat everyone as individual. But I will find a way, or we will find a way to make it work. If you have to have someone cook for you, if you have to meal prep, you know, these days, this day and this day, then we do it and we make enough meals that's going to make you through 2 days. You know, we keep it, you dummy it down. You don't have to make a fancy meal, you know, and there's so many meal services out there. Like the food is really, I can't, when people eat like McDonald's and crap, there really is no excuse at this point.
Hey everyone, in this quick break, I wanted to give a shout out to Coconut VA. They are making this podcast possible. This podcast is hosted by me, but a lot of the back end work is actually done by a Coconut VA. I'm the co-founder of Coconut VA, and we find Filipino virtual assistants for US companies. So if you've got a proven business model, you're growing, you need help with operations, general admin, lead generation, or really any help around the business, you could probably hire a Coconut VA. You can find a link on my podcast page, thebtspodcast.com, or at coconutva.com. My podcast is a great example of how a Coconut VA could help you. I've done the work to systematize my podcast, systematize the production process, and now I can bring in a Coconut VA to actually execute that process. If you're ready to delegate tasks, you're ready to hire a Coconut VA. Yeah, that's fascinating. And what is like, so you typically recommend some kind of meal prepping, right? Is that typically
the best solution? Good. I really, again, some people work from home and they're able to just pop up, go cook something really quick.
True.
I think if you just always have food in your fridge, then it's easier. But there's always like, you can get really clean deli meat. You can get hard-boiled eggs that are already cooked. You can get salmon that's already pre-cooked with no crap on it. You can get all the things. Yeah. So how long does it take to literally just take a piece of salmon that's been cooked and like throw it on top of a salad? Right. Eat a piece of fruit. It's not that hard. It's just, you got to retrain the taste buds too, I think, a bit. Yeah. But,
interesting. And then, I mean, is it helpful for you? Because I feel like business owners, I feel like typically, at least in my mind, like ROI is constantly on my mind. Like, okay, if I spend the time on this or the energy on this, will I see an ROI? Do you typically take that approach, like saying to people like, hey, don't work on your business for this hour, focus on yourself, and you will actually see, a better ROI than forcing yourself to work that extra hour, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that when especially with rest and sleep, when someone gets the like adequate and proper sleep, I think
Yeah.
they're like, oh my God, I'm able to wake up in the morning, I'm able to go work out. Really for you to go through all your cleansing and detox pathways and to like really have your body do that. It does it every single day. You need to sleep between 10 and 7 for that to happen. So if I can get people to sleep between 10 and 7, then at least we know that they're detoxing some of the toxins that went in during the day.
Yeah.
I think just it's like we like to know the facts behind things and studies and know that, okay, well then I get it's not just some hoo-ha that like she wants to put me on some herb and it's gonna fix me. You
Right.
know, you gotta like give them the reasoning behind the madness, and then it
Yeah.
typically will work better, or tell them what the outcome will be. Let's try it for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
baby steps. But I mean, I definitely am a big person who believes that supplementation is great. Taking supplements, if they're the right ones for your body, I don't think it's good to take them willy-nilly. But I mean, they've saved, I know, like, I mean, they've saved my life personally, I can say. And I've seen a lot with my clients, especially with nobody wants to get up in the morning and be like, what did I do at work yesterday? Oh my God, I don't remember that appointment. I don't remember what I told that client. I don't like I'm going into a meeting and I don't just that
Yeah.
brain fog and feeling like you're not like you're dumb almost
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
like you have severe ADD all of a sudden you're like onset
Right.
dementia, you're worrying about Alzheimer's, all this stuff
Yeah.
when really it's just you're burnt out. And that's what I see
Interesting.
a lot of these owners and CEOs and all of us that just go, we burn the candle at every end. And so
Yeah. Love it. And then, so yeah, I mean, you take this, it's perfect. You take this individualized approach, to each and every person. Like everybody has their unique challenges, unique bodies, all of that. And so, what have you seen has been, I don't know, I mean, and maybe you don't have the statistics on this, but what is, I feel like maybe the most effective thing you see, or what's led to the quickest change? Like, is it sleep? Is it diet? Like, you improve this one piece?
most people, I mean, the moms that I get typically don't eat enough, but they
Mm,
eat pretty clean, probably.
okay.
But as far as like, I think diet, as far as like the people in like the business realm
Yeah.
or have really high up jobs, they definitely diet. Their diet suffers. So if we
Mm,
can start with that, it's usually where I start with everyone is we start with the diet and nutrition, educate them on that, educate them on if they want to lose weight, how to do it and not be on some fad diet. Everything I do is literally a lifestyle. So I work with that people for 6 months to a year or more, and
nice.
it's a long-term investment. I mean, like a short-term investment, long-term gain. It's like kind of like how I put it. And they learn how to make lifestyle changes that will be a part of their life for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
without having to take a pill or do some bad diet, and they'll get the results. And I know this because I have a lot of people, if they've worked with me, a couple of years ago, and then I get a call, okay, my daughter just got married, we had a massive wedding and I had a job change and shit is not fucking right.
Yeah.
And they know to call and they're like, can we please rerun these labs? Like I got to get back on track.
Mm,
The things will be great for a while. And then, I mean, your body doesn't know good stress or bad stress. So, and it just sort of, you could hit a limit where they're able to recognize, it's
yeah.
time.
Gotcha. Love it. And so, how do you know when you are achieving that right balance? Like, are there any, or I guess maybe the better question is like, what should you look out for in your life that, is a good signal that you're on the wrong path, you're leading to burnout?
So, oh, there's so many like symptoms, like just basic things. So obviously, like the brain fog is a big one. You're tired and wired. You start to gain weight and you can't lose it, especially around the belly. You kind of get like that tired belly fat, and you cannot lose it. For women, you'll see a lot of hormone imbalances. PMS will be, 3 weeks out of the 4 weeks of a month. Really heavy periods or cramping, something like that. Night sweats, hot flashes. For men, I see more low libido is a really big one, and weight gain and the brain fog. You will see one of the last things I see when the detox pathways are not going well. You'll start to see skin rashes,
Hmm.
eczema, psoriasis, hives, things like that. Because your body is like, that's its last point. It's not its first point. People think that, but it's like, it's trying to detox something, and it's trying to get out anyway. And then GI. So a lot of constipation and diarrhea. I see. Or like every time they eat, they get bloated, or they get gas pains, or it messes them up. But I can look at a person too and kind of see a lot of what's going on just by.
Yeah. How am I doing then? Am I doing okay?
You look a little tired. No, your liver might be a little congested. You might be a little tired. It's hard to tell.
Okay.
Well, it used to be better when I didn't do all Zoom, because
That's true. It's a
I
Zoom
would have
call.
them
Yeah.
not wear any nail polish. I would have them wear no perfume,
Yeah.
no lotions or anything, so I could see the color of their
Oh,
nails.
there you go.
I could see the color of their hands.
Yeah.
A lot of people who wear a lot of cologne and perfume tend to have an odor, which is typically means they're like or you'll even like be at the gym and you'll smell someone who smells like, Chinese food, or they ate, like you could smell like fast food on them. That's typically like their liver or their gallbladder, or like, it's just things are not cleansing well. They're not detoxing, and there's a lot of congestion. So, I mean, if you don't poop, it just sits inside you and becomes extremely toxic right there.
Yeah.
So,
Wow,
and
that's fascinating.
people are on at least 1 or 2 medications or more.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, yeah, that is fascinating. This is good stuff. So, perfect. So, I mean, the last thing that I really wanted to focus on is that brain fog piece. So, how does that tie in? I guess how does this everything that we've talked about so far? How does that tie into procrastination? Like brain fog leading into like procrastination, procrastinating tasks, projects. What do you see leads to that, or how do people get out of that kind of habit of procrastination?
So I think some people are born as like natural procrastinators, and they do well under the wire. I was not one of those. I'd have like my papers done like 8 weeks ahead of time.
Nice.
But I think too, when you're suffering from that brain fog and like that inability to just like get work done, I think that you put it on the back burner until you think you're going to feel better, or okay, well, I'm going to tackle this tomorrow.
Right.
I think they're tired. Most people are tired too. Like you're too tired to even wrap your head around the idea of it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, I'm going to wait to do that one tomorrow. Let me tackle these other tasks today, because they're just suffering from a lot of it too. I find the brain fog it's like your neurotransmitters and I test for that. So when your neurotransmitters are up, like, so your dopamine, your neuronephrine, all that stuff, when those are off, that's where you start to feel a lot of this is where a lot of the lab show is. You'll see the ADD and the like brain foggy kind of like stuff start to happen. I think it's overall exhaustion too. Like the adrenals are just tanked, so they just don't have the motivation to get things done like they used to.
Yeah.
And it becomes more and more frustrating to actually try to do the task, because your brain is not the brain you had 5 years ago.
Right.
And so it just gets put off, and then it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that procrastination sort of a little bit, you're kind of born with it. Some people are great under the wire. Like they wait, and then like last minute they're like, boom, they just like knock it out. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's kind of how I am. Like I don't know. It just feels better to be under the wire for me. Like I feel like I perform better at those times. I don't know. And I try to do prep work and all that, but I feel like I really get into the rhythm when it's like an hour away. The deadline is an hour away, it's funny, but
oh no, I won't sleep. And I like to sleep, so I have to make sure I sleep. So,
Well, I love it. Awesome. So I guess, is there any other, kind of catch-all advice that you want to share with the audience before we kind of wrap up?
Just make sure, I'm a firm believer in like taking really good labs. Typically the ones you will get from like your internist, like your metabolic panels and comprehensive panels will not tell you half of what a good like adrenal hormone like panel will tell you, and a cortisol test. And that's why it's just that these are all out of pocket, like functional labs. I've done double blinds on all of them. They're just like top notch, top, best of the best, for the best of the best. And I mean, it gets results. It's very rare that I don't. And if I don't, I'm going to find out what's going on.
Perfect. So. Awesome. Well, and then kind of the call to action, I believe it's still accurate. Kind of booking a free call with you is kind of the next step if they want to work with you.
Yep. So we can do a discovery call, and basically I do an extensive health history. So I'm going to talk to you for 45 minutes, maybe an hour, about, depending on, what all you have going on. And we are going to talk about from like the day you were born, how you were born, what you were fed, everything all the way up to where you currently are, what your goals are, and then I tell you a little bit about what I think I can do to help you. So it's pretty individualized. Perfect. So I actually had a discovery call, and it was probably one of my shortest calls, with a 92-year-old woman.
Wow.
Suddenly was having GI problems, right?
Yeah.
And like but she had nothing, like no health problems. Her mom was like super organic growing up, and she just all of a sudden had like these bouts of like horrible stomach pains and diarrhea, and like she was like living like, I don't even know. She had like no money, and I was like, listen, if you can just run the labs, I'll work with you, right? Just because I was like, this is great. She's 92. I've never, I'm going to do this. And I actually ended up just putting her on I don't usually do this, but she did start a probiotic, and it all went away. So
good.
But she's 92. I'll cut that one some slack. I usually am a little more extensive than that, but she thinks I'm a miracle worker. So all good. But awesome. I do the discovery call, and then we kind of go from there and just see if it's a match.
Perfect. Awesome. And then I'll put a link to that in our kind of show notes. But yeah, thank you so much for being on with me today, Samantha. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Startup. If you like the show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a review.